This video is designed for use by patients who are enrolled in the Provocol Partners Program, whose physicians have prescribed the cholesterol medication Provocol, in addition to a nutrition and exercise plan. Welcome to Cholesterol, the Inside Story, provided by the Provocol Partners Program, and brought to you by Bristol Myers Squibb Company, the makers of Provocol. Our guest today, cardiologist Dr. Jerome Cohen, nutritionist Dr. Linda Van Horn, and clinical pharmacist Dr. James McKenney. Now your hosts, Kathie Lee Gifford and Regis Philbin.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Provocol Partners Program. Our goal here is to help everybody.
That's right, and that includes us.
Especially us, because we need the help, you know. To understand what it means to have high blood cholesterol and to learn how to lower our blood cholesterol levels and live a healthier life.
Which you try to do, and we both do every day, but you especially because you have high cholesterol.
I do, I really do. We've talked about it on the show. We've had doctors on the show. We've taken the blood. We've analyzed the blood, been on medication. You know, we've tried a little bit of everything on the show to combat this problem. But you know, most of us still don't know exactly what cholesterol is, much less what to do about it, which is why we've invited three very special guests to visit with us. We'll have Dr. Jerome Cohen, who is a professor in the Department of Medicine at St. Louis University School of Medicine. Dr. Cohen is going to help us understand a little bit about cardiovascular disease and the risk factors that can lead to cardiovascular disease. He'll also focus on the one risk factor that all members of the Provocol Partners Program have in common:
High cholesterol.
And after that, he'll discuss a very important part of your therapy plan: exercise.
We'll also have Dr. Linda Van Horn, who is an associate professor at the Northwestern University Medical School. She's going to talk about another crucial part of your therapy program, which is a personal nutrition plan that you can not only live with, but actually enjoy. And finally, Dr. Cohen will be joined by Dr. James McKenney. He is chairman of the Clinical Pharmacy Division at the Medical College of Virginia, and he will discuss your medication. I know you're going to like our guests, and we promise that this will be an enjoyable as well as an informative show. But we do have a good suggestion. This is the time that you should invite a loved one to watch this with you. They'll probably find it interesting, and you'll have someone to compare notes with when it's all over.
Because actually it is a family project. Now here is Dr. Cohen. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Regis.
Dr.
Nice
Cohen,
to be
nice
here.
to meet you, sir.
Hi, Kathy.
Your primary specialty is cardiovascular disease?
Yes, it is.
Why don't we begin then by explaining what exactly cardiovascular disease is?
Well, cardiovascular disease is our nation's #1 killer, and it involves diseases of the heart and the blood vessels that supply blood to the key organs such as the brain and the heart. The #1 disease is coronary atherosclerosis. Now, this is a big fancy term, but basically the coronary arteries are the arteries that supply blood to the heart. And atherosclerosis is the disease process which involves thickening of the arterial walls over time, and which, if it continues long enough, can cause a heart attack.
Well, how does atherosclerosis, is that the way you pronounce it?
Yes, it is.
How does that begin?
Well, it begins in very subtle ways. Normally, the lining of the arteries of the heart are smooth, and the walls are thin. And over a period of time, we see a buildup of calcium, we see a buildup of cholesterol and fats. And we know that this process, if it continues long enough, can interfere with the flow of blood through the artery itself.
All right. I don't smoke. I exercise. Look at me.
He's made of iron.
Exercise, don't smoke, watch my diet, for the most part.
You binge once in a while, right?
So what is it with me? Genetics, do you think?
Well, these are factors that are associated with higher risk, clearly genetic traits, and I think that we can, in fact, recognize that some of these traits are passed down through high blood cholesterol as well as high blood pressure, and these are treatable. I've brought along an animated film, which I think is valuable for our viewers to see, that helps explain this process as it develops over time.
In a normal artery, the walls are relatively smooth, and the blood, which carries vital oxygen and nutrition to the tissues, flows easily. As we age, the cells of the artery walls may become damaged. This damage can also be caused by elevated levels of cholesterol or triglycerides in the blood, high blood pressure, and cigarette smoking. Cells damaged in this way may separate from the artery wall, exposing the tissue beneath. Substances in the blood, such as cholesterol, fats, cellular debris, and calcium, may be deposited at these sites. This condition is known as atherosclerosis. Over time, these atherosclerotic deposits may cause the artery walls to thicken, gradually reducing and sometimes completely blocking the flow of blood. A blockage in blood flow through the arteries that carry blood to the heart may actually cause a portion of the heart muscle to die. This is known as a heart attack.
It was a very interesting little film.
Yes, it was.
But you know what has puzzled a lot of people, the difference between a heart attack and a stroke?
Well, that's an important question that people often ask. Basically, the disease process is the same. I mentioned atherosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries. When it involves the coronary arteries, as we said, it can cause a heart attack. But when the same process, atherosclerosis, involves the blood vessels that supply the brain, the end result can be a stroke. But basically, we need to deal with the disease process of atherosclerosis to prevent both heart attack and stroke to the extent that this may be possible by modification of the risk factors.
You know, Doctor, we both have a little bit of family history in our past, which is not that encouraging. My father had atherosclerosis.
Yes.
My grandmother had arteriosclerosis.
Yeah. These are parts of the same disease process. They involve the blood vessels, and this is the disease process that we're trying to affect by reducing the risk factors. Now, as I said, we don't get too pessimistic when people have a family history, and it's not uncommon. We're talking about the nation's #1 killer. 500,000 people every year die from cardiovascular disease related to heart attack.
But there's nothing you can do about your family history.
You can't do anything about your family history, that's true. You can't change that.
But perhaps they weren't educated in the same way we can be now.
That's right, and we can recognize that these risk factors, such as high cholesterol and high blood pressure, may run in families, and these are risk factors that are treatable. There are 3 major modifiable risk factors. These are high blood pressure, high blood cholesterol, and cigarette smoking. For a cigarette smoker, there's no question the most important thing that person can do is to stop smoking. And on the average, we'll see a reduction in risk for cardiovascular disease of about 50%. In terms of high blood pressure, we know that lowering blood pressure does reduce the risk for cardiovascular disease, both stroke and heart attack. And we know that high blood cholesterol is an important risk factor for the development of cardiovascular disease. There are important other contributory factors, and these include diabetes mellitus, or sugar diabetes, obesity, and a sedentary lifestyle or physical inactivity. In addition, stress is thought to be, by some, an important risk factor, but this is more controversial. Now, these are the modifiable factors. There are also non-modifiable factors that I think are worthy of mention, and this includes age. We know that people, in fact, as they get older, are at higher risk regardless of anything else, and there's not much, of course, that we can do about that, at least at this time. The second non-modifiable risk is, in fact, what gender you are, and we know that men are more likely at any other age to have a heart attack than women, although women start to catch up after the menopause. And the third non-modifiable risk is, in fact, the family history.
The genetic
component. Now, I often see patients who come to me and have a bad family history, and I don't get too pessimistic. Even though you can't change the family history, what we can change are factors that relate to the family history being positive. Namely, what runs in families? High blood cholesterol and high blood pressure. And those are the treatable factors that we mentioned.
Those are the things you can control.
Yes, those are the things we can control, and those are the things that are very important for us to control. And so we urge patients to develop a program for the control of these risk factors in conjunction with consultation with their physicians.
Well, we'll be back to discuss the risk factor that all participants in the Pravachol Partners program share, and that's elevated blood cholesterol, right after this.
What are the dangers of having high blood cholesterol?
The dangers of high cholesterol? I'm not sure, but I think it's only a problem for people who have a lot of heart problems running in their family.
It clogs up your arteries, makes your heart pump harder and harder. That weakens the heart muscles and can cause serious problems.
I don't know. The thing I don't get is one day you're fine. The next day, your cholesterol's too high. Can you really be in danger so quickly?
Now, those seem to be some typical views.
Yes, they are.
Well, what most people, I think, want to know is what exactly is cholesterol? How does it get in your body to begin with, and why is it there?
Well, those are good questions, and they're commonly asked questions. In fact, cholesterol is ubiquitous. It's everywhere in the body. Every cell in the animal kingdom contains cholesterol. It's a fatty substance, and it gets there in the human body in two ways. One is in the food we ingest, and it's present in all animal foods. That includes red meat and fish and poultry, as well as dairy products, milk and cheeses, and eggs. In addition, our body manufactures cholesterol. It's an important part of hormonal composition, and it's manufactured principally in the liver.
Now, I've heard that there's a good cholesterol and a bad cholesterol. I can never remember which is
HDL
which.
and something like that?
Well,
That's
can you
right.
explain
That's
that?
right. There is a good cholesterol and a bad cholesterol. Now, cholesterol, as I explained, is a fatty substance. And in order to circulate in the blood, which is essentially plasma or water, it needs to be soluble. And in order to make it soluble, it's carried in the bloodstream by proteins. And since cholesterol is a fat, we call that lipids. And so the thing that carries it in the blood are called lipoproteins. Now, those are fancy words, but it gets to the initials that you were mentioning. There are two types of proteins that we refer to most commonly. The high-density lipoproteins, or HDL, is a cholesterol that primarily carries cholesterol away from the arteries, whereas LDL, or low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, is that cholesterol which is responsible for the buildup of cholesterol in the arteries itself.
And that's the bad cholesterol.
That's the bad cholesterol, and the opposite is true of the HDL, which is known as the good cholesterol.
Well, then what can we do by ourselves to actually lower the bad cholesterol in our bodies?
Well, that's the key to trying to help reduce the risk. And we lower LDL primarily through the same mechanisms that led to LDL being high in the first place, and that is through diet. And so we recommend diet changes that in fact will lower LDL, and these include primarily reducing dietary cholesterol and saturated fats in the diet.
We're going to be dealing with the exercise and nutrition a little bit later in the program, but tell me, and this should be of special concern to everybody watching this video, what happens if you're eating right, getting enough exercise, and your cholesterol count is still too high?
Yeah, well, that's a key question that we deal with all the time. We have people who are very diligent about following the diet, about following the exercise program, and in fact they do make important changes, and they're able to lower their cholesterol usually by a small amount that is not quite as low as we'd like it to be. In those situations, it's usually an inherited problem, genetically determined, that their cholesterols tend to be higher. Their metabolism is a little different. But the good news side of that is, in fact, that we can help these people by considering the use of medication to lower their cholesterol to acceptable levels.
That's very important, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right, so before we move on, let's take a moment now to review what it is we've learned so far about cholesterol.
Cholesterol is a naturally occurring wax-like substance. In a normal artery, the walls are smooth and the blood flows easily. But when there is too much LDL, or bad cholesterol, in the bloodstream, there's a greater tendency for it to be deposited in the artery walls. Combined with other risk factors, this may put you at increased risk for the development of atherosclerosis. Cholesterol can be lowered by following a healthy nutrition plan, exercising to reduce weight and increase cardiovascular health, and if necessary, medication. These elements form a single treatment plan. They must be used together in order for the plan to be effective.
Well, okay. But if we had to condense everything we've been talking about into one, maybe two sentences, how would you put it?
Well, I think we can summarize in terms of good news and bad news. The bad news is we know that high cholesterol is a risk factor, an important risk factor for heart disease.
Okay.
The good news, however, is that we can do something about it.
Simple as that.
Simple as that.
All right.
All right, thank you, Doctor. And Dr. Cohn will be back in a little while to help us with exercise and medication. But first, we're going to talk about diet and nutrition with Dr. Linda Van Horn.
How would you describe a low cholesterol diet?
No cheese.
No bacon.
Right. No butter.
No eggs.
No gravy.
No chocolate.
Right. No dessert.
Is there anything left?
There are actually many great tasting meals, like with pasta or with certain types of fish that are low in cholesterol. All you have to do is increase the number of those type of meals, decrease the bad stuff, and you'll be fine.
I love to cook, but if you take out all the cholesterol, you take out all the fun. I describe a low cholesterol diet as as horrible and boring.
I know exactly how she feels. Hello, Dr. Van Horn, and welcome.
Thank you.
Understand you're a nutritionist?
That's right.
All right, how would you describe a low cholesterol diet for us?
Tasty and nutritious.
Sums it
I
up.
think there are going to be some people who are surprised to hear you say that.
Well, possibly it's because they focus on all the things they can't have instead of looking at all the wonderful foods they can have.
All right, well, before we go on, let's take a look at exactly what that means.
In the average American diet today, about 37% of calories come from fatty foods, such as meat, dairy products, and fried foods. In a healthy fat-modified diet, less than 30% of calories come from all forms of fat, with no more than 10% of calories coming from saturated fat, which is found mainly in meats, butter, cheeses, and other whole milk dairy products, and the remaining calories coming from polyunsaturated fats, found in safflower, sunflower, corn and sesame oils, and the flesh of cold water fish like herring, mackerel, and salmon, and from monounsaturated fats, found in olive oil and also in canola oils. Among the best sources of fiber are cereals, fruits and vegetables, and many types of beans. Among the best sources of complex carbohydrates are cereals, whole grain breads, and pasta, while the best sources of lean protein include fish, skinless chicken and turkey, beans, and lean meat.
So does that require going on a special diet?
Well, to most people, diet means something temporary, something you start today and stop tomorrow. And what we're talking about is something you can do for the rest of your life and enjoy it too.
Well, it sounds good so far. How do we start?
Well, I think the first way to start is to begin to identify the things in your diet that are giving you the most fat. And the best way to do that is by keeping a record of everything you eat and drink for probably 3 days. And if you keep a couple of weekdays as well as a weekend day, you get a good picture of the kinds of foods that you're eating.
And we just want our viewers to know that there are record forms for exactly this purpose inserted into the booklet that came along with this videotape, so there are no excuses, right, Doctor?
That's right.
Just gotta do it.
Once you've done that, the battle's really half won. The next step after that is to begin to identify the other high-fat foods that may be in your refrigerator or your cupboard. And systematically, you can begin to replace those high-fat foods with lower-fat versions.
So
Discover
again,
the enemy.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So again, there's a record form for that in this booklet as well, right?
That's correct.
Let's make sure I understand this, because I have trouble with these things. I start by keeping a record of what I'm eating for 3 days.
Right.
I look it over. I realize I'm not exactly on what you would call a low-fat nutrition plan.
Not exactly.
So what do I do next then? Do I just change overnight?
No, I think that would be a mistake. Making major changes like that really is difficult, and it might discourage you from continuing. The best thing to do is look at those foods that you really don't have a problem with. There are foods that each of us can find that we really don't have much trouble replacing with a lower fat version. Remember, hamburger is only 80% lean and 20% fat, so you can switch to something leaner like low-fat ground sirloin or ground round, or even better, ground turkey as a substitute for hamburger.
So I make an inventory of what's in my refrigerator, on my shelf, what's good, what's not good.
Right.
Why don't we start with a list of foods to substitute for what's in my cupboard right now?
Well, maybe dairy is the best place to start because there are so many lower fat dairy products that are now available. Low fat cheese, yogurt, milks, etc. And once you've begun to identify those foods, you can systematically add them back in.
But what if I'm, say, hypothetically now, if I'm just someone who can't live without the taste of whole milk?
Then you probably should not choose that as your first choice of making a change. Start with something you really can change. For example, many people can live without sour cream. If you've been accustomed to putting sour cream on a baked potato, there are many low-fat versions of sour cream now that are available that are just as tasty and yet half or less than the total amount of fat.
Now let's take a look at these other food types that you could substitute in your everyday diet.
Absolutely. It's really not, again, a matter of substituting as much as it is enjoying the things that we really have available. For example, this fish is a much lower fat, lower cholesterol option than some of our higher fat meats. It's wonderfully nutritious, has a lot of protein, very little fat.
And great taste.
And wonderful taste.
But
very
Dr.
versatile.
Cohen mentioned fish and poultry and meat as being almost in the same category. There are certain fishes that are better, right?
Right. Well, in terms of fat, there are certainly fish and poultry products that are lower in fat, and meat products as well, than others. So you really need to be selective. But with fish, you really can't go wrong as long as you don't fry it. And if you do cook in any kind of oil, the best thing to do is use one of the unsaturated versions. Unsaturated or monounsaturated oils such as soy oil, safflower oil, canola oil. These are all wonderful. Olive oil.
No coconut oil.
Right, exactly.
The old pasta dishes?
Exactly. Can't go wrong with pasta, rice, high carbohydrate, low fat, and combined with beans or other dairy products, low-fat dairy products, you have complete protein with very little fat.
Veggies?
Absolutely. Can't have enough of them. In fact, we recommend that you get at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, and for many people, that's about double what they're eating now.
Oh, yeah.
White bread is a no-no, but the whole grain bread is good.
Whole grain breads, right. There's just no end to the options that you have available for whole grain breads. And as long as you use an unsaturated margarine on
that looks like real old-fashioned butter to me. It isn't, huh?
Doesn't it? But unsaturated margarine is fine, very lightly. You don't need much, just to get a little of the flavor.
And you can't go wrong with fruit.
Right. Again,
apple a day.
Exactly, or more than that. As long as there are 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, you're probably in the right ballpark.
I'm in the wrong ballpark, really. Not eating the right things yet. Linda, talk to us a little bit about food labeling. We hear so much about it today.
Right. Food labeling is extremely important, and especially now that food labels have been regulated so that there's much more important information for you to choose from. In addition to that, you find the serving size, which is also very important in terms of portion control, so we don't overeat and get too many calories in any one serving.
Yeah.
But you know, the old restaurants don't give you all of that labeling. It's not I'm eating out of the restaurant, and it doesn't come with any labels on it. So what do I do then?
That's right. Well, there's really 2 ways to approach that. One is to look at the menu and begin to select the foods that you know are already relatively low in fat. Take chicken, for example. As long as it's baked, not fried, and served without sauce or creams on it, or skin, you have an opportunity there to get a very low-fat meal. In addition to that, you should also be totally willing to ask your waiter for more information about the foods that are served on the menu. And if he or she doesn't know, they can also ask the cook.
And can't you usually ask them to prepare a certain dish your way?
Yeah, right.
Say I want it done with olive oil and a little bit of lemon instead of any sauces.
The restaurant industry has been really responsive to the needs of consumers now to begin to follow these kinds of recommendations, not only at home, but also in the restaurant. And so they're very willing to make some of these changes for you.
Well, a big fact of life in an awful lot of people's lives these days is the busyness that we all have. And so we end up sometimes going to the fast food type restaurants. And what should we be careful of there?
Well, the fast food restaurants are really a fact of life in our fast-paced world, and the problem is that fast means fried in most cases because it's the quickest way to cook something. And when something's fried, of course, there's more fat. But again, the fast food industry has tried very hard to begin to provide other foods on the menu that are an alternative for some of these high-fat fried foods. There's skim milk now, there's juices, there's salad bars.
Great salad bars.
Low-fat burgers, soups, a whole variety of things that really can be used as a substitute for some of those higher-fat meals.
Low-fat yogurt instead of ice cream?
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's summarize everything we've discussed so far.
First, try to get less than 30% of your total calories from fat, less than 10% of calories from saturated fat, lots of fiber and complex carbohydrates, moderate amounts of lean protein. Keep a record of what you normally eat over the course of at least 3 days. Do an inventory of what's in your refrigerator and your cupboards. Using these records, you can start to identify the eating habits that will be easiest to change first. When you eat out, look for dishes cooked without fatty sauces or gravies, and ask the waiter for help in identifying healthier menu items. Finally, read the labels. It's the only way to know what you're eating.
Dr. Linda Van Horn, we thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank
very
you.
interesting. We'll be right back to talk about exercise with Dr. Jerome Cohen after we hear what these people think about exercise.
How do you feel about exercising to lower your cholesterol?
Exercise? It's a good thing. I just can't afford to join a health club.
Oh, I'd like to exercise. I'd exercise all day if I could, but I mean, who has the time?
Now, I know people like her. Welcome back, Dr. Cohen. We've been talking about nutrition. Now we'd like you to tell us a little bit about exercise.
Yes, exercise is really an important component of a program in order to reduce cardiovascular risk factors.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Regis, that's not what we mean by an exercise program.
Of course it isn't.
But doctor, I work like this 2 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Well, but I think that's a little too much.
That's
in terms
excessive.
of exactly what you want to do. First of all, you don't have to have a fancy jogging suit.
No, you
don't have
don't.
to do deep knee bends.
Of course not.
What we'd like to advocate is people exercising to improve their health as part of an overall program that they can continue for the rest of their lives.
Well, like what?
Well, like walking, for example.
Walking?
Walking.
Just as simple as this.
Just as simple
A little
as that.
brisker would help.
A little brisker, yeah.
But we would recommend 20 minutes a day as a minimum for exercise, at least 3 days per week on non-consecutive days, and this will be sufficient at least to begin to get some of the advantages of exercise.
That's all it takes?
Yes.
Well, why
Aren't you
didn't you
supposed
tell
to
me
get your
this?
heart going a little bit? Aren't you supposed to start feeling it a little?
Well, you are, and that will come with time in terms of a conditioning effect.
Building up your stamina.
Yes, but the advantages of just plain walking, for example, is that we burn calories. It helps to maintain or to achieve ideal body weight. It helps to lower blood pressure. It helps to lower the bad cholesterol. It helps to raise the good or HDL cholesterol, and therefore it has a lot of good benefits to it.
Would jogging be better than walking?
Not necessarily. We would recommend beginning with walking, and if someone wants to develop an exercise program, we would recommend strongly that that person consult with their physician in order to have a program that's tailor-made for their ability and for their level of conditioning. And we are talking about something that will hopefully be part of what you do for the rest of your life, not for a day or a week or a month, but for a long, long time to come. And that's why we say build it into your everyday lifestyle pattern. Walking can be done. We recommend, for example, using the stairs more than the elevators. Even if your office is on a high floor, you can take the stairs a couple of flights and take the elevator the rest of the way.
A couple of times a day you could do that.
Absolutely. And those calories that you expend in that energy requirement build up over time and helps to prevent obesity or to achieve weight loss when we're trying to do that.
You know, doctor, so many people use the excuse that they just don't have the time in this busy world for exercise.
Yes, we hear that very often. People, in fact, are busy today, and it's a matter of priorities. And we tell people what's more important in terms of priorities than their health. And so I tell people to make yourself the #1 priority. It isn't selfish to spend 20 minutes 3 times a week trying to improve your health by developing an exercise program in consultation with your physician.
It's something you can do as a family, too. I know my mom and dad, each evening after dinner, take a 2-mile walk just together and talk about the day, and then they've had their exercise, and they've also had companionship.
Absolutely. That's a very good point, and we see exercise as a means of reducing stress, and that's one of the additional benefits of exercise and an exercise program.
Unless they fight the whole time, you know, that can't be helped.
Actually, there are a million ways you can incorporate this into your lifestyle. All right, why don't we now go to our summary right now?
Exercise can control body weight and can increase the amount of HDL cholesterol. It conditions the heart, and it makes you feel good. You should exercise regularly, at least 3 times a week, a minimum of 20 minutes each time. It should be aerobic exercise, walking, biking, swimming, or other low-impact activities. It shouldn't be hard. It should be fun and easy to build into your day. And again, you should speak with your physician before you start an exercise program.
That's good advice. Stay with us, Dr. Cohen. Right after we hear from these folks, we'll be joined by Dr. James McKinney to talk about the role of medication.
How do you feel about taking medication to lower your cholesterol?
If diet and exercise don't work, why should a drug work?
I don't know. I'd be worried about side effects.
I wouldn't feel good about it. I mean, I feel healthy. Why should I take medication?
Well, welcome to you, Dr. James McKinney. We brought you and Dr. Cohen together so that we could get both the pharmacist and the physician's point of view on medication. Are you surprised, Dr. McKinney, by what those people we just interviewed had to say?
Well, you know, it's sometimes hard to understand that something you can't feel, and especially something you can't see, can actually be bad for you. But from what we've learned this morning, that's the case.
Well, okay, now we've adopted a nutrition plan. We've started an exercise program. We're working with our doctor, and we still have a problem. The cholesterol count is still up there. So what gives?
Unfortunately, we're not always able to lower cholesterol to acceptable levels with diet and exercise alone. The reason is that some people just make too much cholesterol, or for some reason they don't respond as well as we'd like to exercise and nutritional programs. For these people then, we would consider prescribing a cholesterol-lowering drug. And we're fortunate now to have several outstanding drugs available that are very effective in lowering cholesterol. And experience with these medications has shown that these drugs have excellent safety profiles. This provides physicians with a number of good products from which to choose, and your doctor will select the medication which is best suited to you and your specific medical background. Now, obviously, no drug is effective unless it's used correctly, which means taking it regularly and in the right quantity as prescribed by your physician.
Well, now let's focus specifically on Pravachol, which is the medication that's been prescribed for the members of the Pravachol Partners Program by their physicians. What is the important information we need to know about this medication?
It's one of a new type of cholesterol-lowering medications. These medications act to decrease the amount of cholesterol the body makes at the main cholesterol production site, the liver. They also help remove LDL, the bad cholesterol, from the bloodstream. And we consider these types of drugs to be an addition to a diet low in saturated fats and cholesterol, as was discussed by Dr. Van Horn, and an exercise program, as was discussed by Dr. Cohen, for people who have an increased risk of atherosclerosis.
And I'd just like to remind our viewers here that if you have any questions about Pravachol or any part of your therapy, there is room to write them down in the brochure that came with this videotape.
It's important to discuss questions you have with your physician, and may I add also your pharmacist. After all, who better? Your physician has a record of your personal medical history, which allows him or her to individualize your treatment plan, and your pharmacist has a record of your prescriptions. So I'd say don't be shy about contacting either your physician or your pharmacist if you have any questions or worries or problems. That's what they're there for.
Well, now tell me, how much and when should a person take Pravachol?
Well, Pravachol comes in tablets. It should be, of course, taken exactly as prescribed by your physician. It's usually taken once a day at bedtime. The prescription label should tell you exactly how many tablets to take with each dose. It's important that if you have any questions about your daily dose, or for that matter, any part of the medication instructions, you should ask your physician or pharmacist.
Why is it usually recommended that Pravachol be taken at bedtime?
Actually, most cholesterol production occurs at night, and so it's logical to take Pravachol at bedtime than any other time during the day.
Dr. Cohen, what happens if you stop taking Pravachol?
Well, Regis, that's a really important question because this happens sometimes. First of all, it's important to remember that Pravachol, along with proper nutrition and exercise, is part of an effective therapy for lowering cholesterol, but none of this is a cure. Studies show that high cholesterol is a lifelong condition, and that means that if you stop taking the Pravachol or discontinue the nutrition or exercise programs, it's very likely your cholesterol will go back up again.
Well, what happens if you accidentally miss a day?
Well, just take your usual dose, not a double dose, right on schedule the following day.
Is there any situation when you should stop taking Pravachol?
For sure, if you're pregnant or you're breastfeeding, you should not take Pravachol. In fact, if you become pregnant while taking Pravachol, you should stop taking it and contact your physician.
Are there any side effects we should know about Pravachol?
As with every medication, side effects can occur. In clinical studies, the most common side effect symptoms which were associated with Pravachol in patients taking Pravachol included headache, nausea, gas, diarrhea or constipation, abdominal pain, heartburn, fatigue, dizziness, and rash. Each of these occurred in less than 3% of patients taking Pravachol. In any case, if you experience any side effects that are severe or persistent, you should contact your doctor. In addition, any unexplained muscle pain or tenderness or weakness, particularly with fever or malaise, should be promptly reported to your doctor. Obviously, if you're experiencing anything that you feel is a problem with Pravachol, you should contact your physician.
Dr. Cohen, after starting on Pravachol, will there be tests or other types of follow-up?
As with any drug that lowers cholesterol, your doctor will need to monitor your condition through routine laboratory tests. So it's important that you keep all your appointments with your doctor. You'll have periodic blood tests to check your blood cholesterol levels and to be sure that the drug is working properly for you. This will also give your physician the opportunity to make dosage adjustments if they are necessary. From these tests, your physician will also check your liver enzyme levels, because sometimes we know that these levels can go up with medication, and that may not be a good sign. If that happens, this medication may not be right for you. Again, these tests are absolutely routine and nothing to worry about. They shouldn't dissuade someone from taking the drug. They're the best way for your doctor to make sure you're getting the expected results. As we've mentioned before, Pravachol is just one part of your total therapy plan. It's really important that you continue your low cholesterol, low fat nutrition program as well as your exercise program.
Does Provocol need to be taken with meals, and do you need to avoid any specific foods when you're taking Provocol?
Actually, Provocol can be taken either way, with or without food, whatever is the most convenient for you. And there really are no specific foods to avoid with Provocol.
What about medications to avoid while taking Provocol?
Well, as a general rule, always remember to consult your physician or your pharmacist before adding any new medications to an existing therapy plan. Based on experience with other cholesterol-lowering medications, it's recommended that Provocol not be taken with certain other medicines. For example, your doctor or pharmacist will be on the alert to avoid the antibiotic erythromycin, cyclosporin, which is an immunosuppressive agent generally used for transplant patients, and gemfibrozil or niacin, which are other cholesterol-lowering drugs. Your doctor can answer any questions that you may have about this.
Dr. Cohen, is there anything else you'd like to add to this?
I would just like to say, as a cardiologist, that when a nutritional approach alone is not enough, we're really fortunate to have these new products, such as Provocol, which are so effective in lowering cholesterol to acceptable levels.
Maybe this is a good place for us to summarize what we've been talking about.
In addition to following a low-fat, low-cholesterol nutrition and an exercise plan recommended by a physician, some people need medication to bring their cholesterol down to acceptable levels. Even with the medication, they must continue their lifestyle modifications, the nutrition and exercise plans. Provocol is a drug that can reduce the amount of cholesterol made by the liver, and as a result, reduce the amount of cholesterol in the bloodstream. Provocol is taken once a day, every day, with or without food. With Provocol, side effects are not common and are generally mild. Patients taking Provocol should avoid the antibiotic erythromycin, gemfibrozil, or niacin, and immunosuppressive drugs such as cyclosporin. If you have any questions about Provocol or about any part of your therapy, it's important to discuss them with your physician or pharmacist.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Dr. Jerome Cohen, Dr. James McKinney. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
What did you learn from this videotape?
Well, we now know that cholesterol is a naturally occurring waxy substance that resembles fat, and it's in all of us. If we've got high levels of cholesterol, it can increase our risk of developing cardiovascular disease.
There are 3 ways to help lower the amount of blood cholesterol: nutrition, exercise, and medication.
First, nutrition. We want to get less than 30% of our total calories from fat and less than 10% from saturated fat, as well as cut down on cholesterol in our diet and manage our weight.
I mean, it sounds simple. Dr. Linda Van Horn gave us 2 assignments to do, remember? Right. The first was to keep a record of what we eat over the course of at least 3 days. The second was to do an inventory of what's in our fridge, in our cupboards, to identify the eating habits that will be easiest to change.
And we have to remember to read those labels.
Got to read them. And now exercise. Exercise can help us control body weight, condition the heart, and raise the level of HDL or good cholesterol.
And it makes you feel good and
really
look
does.
good. Reed, you're looking very good.
We should do it at least 3 times a week. It should be aerobic exercise, walking, biking, swimming, or other low-impact activities.
And it should be fun. And don't forget to talk to your doctor about it.
Absolutely. Moving on to medication, some people need it to bring their cholesterol down to acceptable levels. But even then, they should continue with their nutrition and exercise plans. What else?
See your doctor or pharmacist if you have any questions about Provocol or if you just need advice on your nutrition or exercise plans.
Well, you know, that about wraps up our videotape. But before we go, we'd like to show you the Provocol Partners newsletter, which you'll be getting periodically. And you can think of it as a continuation of this videotape.
It really is terrific. Each issue will be full of information. Information on cholesterol itself, new fun exercises, new recipes, and shopping tips from Dr. Linda Van Horn. Lots of other things to help make low cholesterol living a pleasure. You'll even find special offers on walking shoes, magazines, and other products designed with you and me and Regis in mind. It's a great newsletter, so watch for it in the mail.
Yeah, it really is good. Now, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, get your exercise.
Yep, eat the right foods.
Take your medication every day.
And talk to your doctor if you have any questions or if you need help with your personal cholesterol management program. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.